sky turned black, the stars fell down. United we stand, but we're losing ground. One world beneath the iron fist. Voices silenced, they cease to resist. Echoes of hope in the darkening night. Fading whispers of a long lost life. Rise up, hear the call to arms. In this storm of chaos we'll find our charms. Together we'll fight through the ashes and dust. A phoenix reborn in our hearts' purest trust. The sirens wail through the desolate towns. Once proud nations painted in the scars of the crown. A single army marching on our dreams. Unity forged in despair, or so it seems. Nothing left but shadows drifting away as the last embers of freedom decay. Rise up, hear the call to arms. In this storm of chaos we'll find our charms. Together we'll fight through the ashes and dust. A phoenix reborn in our hearts' purest trust. One global army, together we stand. In the fall of the world, we'll make our last stand.
Hello, everybody. Good to see everybody in the chat. Bigfoot Dwarf, I'm putting the link in the chat so you can just type into that and come on whenever you want, okay? So there's the link. Bounty, good to see you. Genocide, good to see you. Monisha, good to see you. Roxanne, everybody, good to see everybody. And of course, BD in the chat. He'll be coming on shortly, but I'm going to get into the disclaimer. And this is probably going to be just about an hour or so tonight. It's not going to be an overly long podcast. But I've got some things that I've been taking a lot of pictures lately of the environment around me. And I've been noticing some things a lot closer than what I normally would. And I just think it ties in with the whole orb and the UFO phenomena being associated with certain Bigfoot sightings. Okay, so we're gonna get into a little bit of that today, tonight, and we'll see where it takes us. Okay. So that being said, the copyright disclaimer is this channel might use some copyrighted material without specific authorization of the owner, but contends that it falls under the fair use, which is the Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, which makes allowances for purposes such as criticism, commentary, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research, parody, and entertainment value, and can be used for fair use. All right. That being said, the intros and outros and the pictures and stuff that I'm posting on here tonight are all the sole ownership and all that of myself. So let me see here. Let me get this off of here. I'm still working with a hell of a headache, everybody, just so you know. This headache has not left me at all. Anyways, all right, there we go. We're just waiting for a Bigfoot dwarf to come on. While we're waiting for him to pop up backstage here, I want to show a couple things to you all. We have a couple trees very close, very, very, very close to our home, and I did some pictures today, and because I started thinking about the one with the little person and the orbs, and what I could see above and beyond that, if I studied the photographs, and what I found is pretty incredible. A little disturbing too, but it shows you that if you look hard enough at your environment, you can see certain aspects of it that are supernatural in nature. Bad pun, but I realize, nature, but I want to show you something here. On this photograph, okay, not every Bigfoot or cryptid is going to be flesh and blood. And I've said that time and time and time again, okay? Because when something is attached long enough to Mother Earth or the environment, it's going to absorb energies or be absorbed within the environment as an energy, okay? So that being said, I want everybody to take a look at this picture, and I'm going to blow it up here for you, okay? And I'm going to show you something. It looks pretty amazing. This is a lower branch on the tree. Can you see it? Do you see the Bigfoot? Take a look at that. Now, is it pareidolia? I don't think so. That thing is showing a cone-shaped head, two big dark eyes, a nose, a mouth, and a short, almost snout-looking thing, and the whole upper shoulder area. That is literally an elemental. Literally. When we say that everything is connected in this universe and in the web of life, we mean that it is connected. BD, I'm going to add you to the stage. Okay, I'll let you in here right now. Let's get that mic unmuted so we can hear you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Salute, Brother Nighthawk. Cheers to everyone in chat. Salutations, greetings, everyone. Actually, I control the mute, so just a heads up. So, like when I'm not talking, I'll hit the mute also. But yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Brother Nighthawk, for the invite, man. Glad I could make it.
Well, I'm glad to have you here, man. I wanted to talk to you because you and Eric had an interesting podcast the other night, and I know he wants to have another one with you too.
Yeah,
and
anytime. And hopefully he's hanging out. I was hanging over on his stream earlier, and I got a little something for us tonight too, kind of like Eric's show that I'm gonna bring up in a little bit that maybe we could talk about also. So,
what do you think about this picture I took earlier today?
So check this out. I had usually when I jump into StreamYard, I usually have like my background so you guys could actually see my raw, like you probably see a bunch of gear and stuff behind me. But yeah, I could only see, like, I see a small little screen. I don't know. I'm afraid to tap anything. I don't want to exit the stream here, but I could kind of
okay.
see it. I could kind of see what you're showing there, but I'm having a little bit of trouble. And I like that you use a
You see,
white circle.
yeah. I've got it on
A
my
lot of people
laptop, so
use.
it's pretty big, yeah, for me. So, but
Okay.
for those of you that don't have a laptop, when what you're looking at in the center of that white circle is literally almost picture a Bigfoot hunched over walking. Okay, because that's literally, and it's turned looking straight at you. That's literally what you're looking at in this photograph. And it's always been a contention of mine to always separate the supernatural from the flesh and blood and bone. Okay. And we have the two clearly. Okay. Um, thank you, Urso. Shelly, good to see you. Marcy, good to see you. Um, you know, it's kind of shocking to actually see elementals presenting themselves to you on a regular basis, and that's not the only thing. Now, I'm not saying that this actual photograph is how the elemental looks all the time. Elementals can change their appearance because they are literally the oldest type of fae known. Okay. They were here long before man, long before whatever you want to call them, dragons, dinosaurs, it doesn't matter. Long before the Anunnaki, to tell you the truth. Okay. So, Bounty, good to see you. I just, I thought this was interesting because with our topic tonight, and we always see, how there's certain reports out there, BD, that acknowledge seeing orbs, and David and Daniel and Melissa have seen the orbs in some of their adventures out, boots on the ground. But there's so many sightings of Bigfoot or other cryptids with orbs or UFOs affiliated with them. It almost makes you wonder, and I'll get into the whole UFO thing on my thoughts on that because I'm sorry, I don't believe Bigfoot's an alien. I do believe that there are shapeshifter aliens that can assume any identity of anything on this planet, okay, that come forth, whether it's interdimensional aliens or, other universes aliens, okay? So that being said, shapeshifters, I know they exist, okay? I've dealt with it my whole life, okay? But when it comes to elementals, there's something very special, almost an earthly angelic feeling attached to them because they are so protective of Mother Earth and the sacred hoop of life, okay, that they will take the form of other beings to get their point across to people. And maybe sometimes, maybe the ones that people are seeing that are upset at them, whether you're hunting or whatnot, or just doing something you're not supposed to be doing in the woods, maybe these are the elementals they're seeing, the Bigfoot that they're seeing with the red glowing eyes. And I thought, well, it could be, demonic possession too, because, a flesh and blood being can be demonically possessed, whether it's human, animal, or whatnot. Okay. Or at least have an attachment to it, making it feel demonic. So, but I'm under the impression that these elementals are literally trying their best to protect the environment. What do you think about that, BD?
Yeah, I've been learning more about the elementals, and obviously they have to do with the elements, right? And then you mentioned Fae being a part of the elementals as well, which
Mm-hmm.
I've been learning more also about the Fae. It's a wide, it's a pretty wide thing, and I've also heard people mentioning Bigfoot also could be a part of the Fae, which I find fascinating. And yeah, who knows? It makes me wonder.
Right.
And I've always heard to be careful around the Fae because Disney's always depicted them as like these fun little fairy things like Tinkerbell and stuff, which I don't. I hear it's not like that, and maybe there is some good ones that are on that level. I hear, there's like sprites and all these different things, which could also the orbs come up, like with the sprites and the fairies. People have described some of these
Mhm.
lights also possibly being some of these beings or spirits. And yeah, so I guess, I'm as I learn more about the elementals. So what it's like, what the elements, it's what, fire, air, water, and
Water,
what else? Yeah, it's just,
earth,
so it's
fire,
like,
wind, and water.
okay. And so, yeah, just learning more about what beings or what spirits uh, could be involved with those elements. And like
Mhm.
I said, I'm just learning this stuff. I'm sure, know way more than I do. But yeah, I could talk a little about it. And it's made me wonder too, when I see these lights, because I have seen bright lights, these orb type lights, quite a bit. I don't know how deep I got into. I kind of forgot our conversation with Testerman there, but it was a good show, and thank you, Eric, for having me on. Yeah, so living up in Northern California, we were up in the hills up there, redwood country, Bigfoot country, and we had neighbors that were pretty far away. Like everyone had their space there. Actually, my one neighbor that we could see from our deck across the way there, they were on like a ridge top. That was good friends of ours, so we didn't mind that. They could see us over at our place, but it was all pretty far distance. And actually, one of them, it was a couple that lived there, and one of them would see the lights as well, so it kind of confirmed what I was what I was seeing and stuff. But it was almost on a nightly thing that these things would pop up, and I've heard people talk about that they could be possibly like minerals and stuff in the ground that may be causing that certain gases as well, which I guess it's the
Mhm.
scientific explanation for some of these things, which I don't doubt as well. But then I think even that, with the scientific explanation, could it still be tied to some of these spirit beings and or entities and stuff? But yeah, I
Well,
would see
that's
these
funny.
things. Uh-huh.
That's funny that you say that about certain minerals in the ground and stuff, because after I took this picture today, I walked up to the mailbox because we had a small package delivered through Amazon for an air fryer we have. And
Nice.
basically, I looked down at the ground and there's a piece of selenite.
Yeah, I'm not
So,
not familiar. I'm not familiar with selenite and its properties and stuff. And actually, we at our shop, we have a book of just the minerals, stones, and stuff like that. It's called the Bible, but I'm not familiar with that. Can you school me
selenite,
on that?
yeah, selenite is a certain type of a mineral that is used to promote positivity, to promote you know to basically keep, if you keep selenite next to something that you cherish and you want protected, it'll constantly keep the selenite will constantly revitalize that object, okay, and make it have a higher vibration. And that to me, along with seeing this picture today, just tells me that they are the elemental that is here, has been communicating with me a lot lately. Whether it's in the form of a little person or whether it's in the form of an orb. I've got a picture on here of the elemental trying to basically manifest itself out in the field next to another tree. And you can see the mist clearly starting to form. And this is from a security camera.
Okay.
You can see the mist out there in the field trying to form by the tree. And you can see the shadow of the tree actually looks darker than the tree itself on the inside of the circle. And you can literally at the top, almost to the top of that circle, see a head and shoulders starting to form.
Yeah, I
So,
see. I see it. That I can
yeah,
see.
it's pretty amazing to me that, when we think about the whole elemental thing, that we don't really see. Here's a full picture of the tree. and I
See,
can't make that picture any bigger
okay.
unless I go into my phone. But inside that circle, you can see a different type of face within the leaf structure. Okay, now that could be considered pareidolia, but I recall seeing several years ago how people were reporting seeing spirits manifesting their faces amongst the leaves of the trees,
That's
especially before like tragic events and stuff.
wow. Yeah. See that's fascinating because I do have some video of a possible I would say Bigfoot, but yeah, right before that the clip of the subject, there's some like plants, bushes and stuff, and you clearly like you see a face of someone, and I think they're even wearing a hat, and I don't know, I'm like, man, if that's pareidolia, that's some of the
Pretty
best
vivid.
there because it
Yeah.
looks like a face. And you know what, William, right quick, it's funny with the screen, the live that's doing the countdown, I could see we're at 21, 22 minutes. It's covering most of the screen, so sometimes when you show pictures, that is right in the way. But I do see a button here with the orange, and it's having an arrow go that way. Maybe that will pop up the screen even bigger for me. I don't know. Should I give it a shot?
That's going to take you out of the live
Oh,
studio.
all right. So let's not do that then. Let's keep the show going.
Let's do this. If you've got something to present, can you see the
No,
presenter? You
no,
can't. All right.
I have nothing to present. I actually, I mean, I wish I could have brought some stuff, but it was just kind of a last minute thing. I wasn't ready to do all that. And then I would have done better with the laptop doing that. I don't know how to do that with the phone. But we could save that
Yeah,
for another time for sure, you know. But yeah, no, we could talk all about this stuff.
yeah. And then just to make it clear, I'm not going to be going through the comments, everybody. I know you guys are making some good comments because I'm watching them
Yeah,
roll on
drop them
the
in the
screen.
comments after the video.
But
We need that
unfortunately, that
that
type, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that
that
type is so damn small. I'm having a, yeah, it's just too small for me to even read on a
Oh,
computer
okay.
screen.
Yeah, and
Um,
I could see, yeah, no, there's no way I could read it, but I see the comments scrolling there. So I could still see the screen. I could see
yeah,
you, but it's all good. We're making it happen. And
yeah.
yeah, you know, if anyone got any questions or anything, drop them in the comments. And remember, dropping comments on these videos, I think tickles the algorithm too, folks. So go ahead and tickle that
Exactly,
algorithm.
exactly. Now, what we're dealing with tonight, though, with the subject with Bigfoot and the orbs and the UFO encounters associated with them, um, like I said, David and Melissa and Daniel from the ECBRO have reported seeing the orbs. David's in
Oh,
the
right
chat,
on.
and I believe he is. So, um, we'll have them on next time we bring you on too to finish this conversation. But tonight, I just wanted to go over the generalities of what I've experienced. And the one thing that I'm a firm believer of when it comes to the orbs is that I'm under the extreme opinion that these orbs that people are seeing are literally seeing a manifestation of the spiritual equivalent of a chi or the energies of these beings. Now, I'm not saying that these beings are necessarily, very flesh and blood Bigfoot. Okay. They very well could be shapeshifters that are just taking the form of a Bigfoot and showing the energy on the side. Okay. That energy could be linked to, some technology somewhere, maybe even a UFO, you never know, or a UAP. I hate calling them UAPs, by the way. To me, that's ridiculous. To me, that's a ball lightning is a UAP. So,
Okay. And I was gonna bring that up also. I just had seen some stuff recently on Ball of Lightning, and yeah, you know, I do keep that in mind as well when I do see these things. But yeah, no, that seems interesting, and that's super cool that you consider it a UAP. I think, you know, they have a scientific explanation for that as well, right? But I
exactly.
would consider it still yeah, something almost like because they mentioned that it sometimes even follows people, like it's almost like it's conscious too. So
Exactly.
that, and that's what the vibe that I get from these orbs that I've seen as well. And yeah, go on.
Yeah,
Follow light.
the orbs that I've experienced are more part of the environment. When you're dealing with Native American heritage and stuff, like, well, just take the Brown Mountain Lights for example. Okay, you're dealing with legends of Native people that had a tragic event happen on a partial of land, and now you're seeing orb activity. To me, that is a supernatural type of an orb. Okay. And to me, there's several different types of orbs. I mean, technically, you can call those metal spears that people see flying around in the sky all the time an orb. Okay. You can see up in the sky, high up, a big white illuminated um, round object in the sky. I'm under the impression that when we see something that high up, that it might actually be some type of an interdimensional portal opening up.
Okay.
Um, because you usually experience um, other phenomena with that type of activity that high up in the sky. And you usually see something jutting in and out of those round white lights in the sky. So I don't really consider those orbs because they're so high up. Now, could they be, some form of supernatural? Yeah, they could be. But to me, when we're dealing with orbs, we're dealing with multiple types. And there's more than just two or three different types of orbs
For sure.
because you're dealing with attachments supernaturally to beings like Bigfoot. With when it comes to their own energy, you're dealing with the energy of the environment and the land. You're dealing with the tragic events within the land and the native culture, the indigenous cultures around the world. So, yeah, you're going to see all types of supernatural orbs and even biological orbs, orbs that appear to have faces in them, orbs that appear to look like they respond when you talk to it. Um, there was a video on YouTube not too long ago of a woman that was talking to an orb, and she said, "Oh, I love Jesus. Do you know Jesus?" And it changed colors, and got bigger, like it was responding to her inquiry of its knowledge, which kind of unique, if you ask me. So there's definitely multiple levels and multiple ways of describing orbs, and it's more than just a certain couple ways. And
Oh
I
yeah.
think I've always been under the impression that when you see an orb with a Bigfoot, you're either dealing with a shape shifting entity that is assuming the actual look of a Bigfoot because they know that most people don't want to have a run in with it, unless they're weird like you and I. Uh, and or you're dealing with a a elemental type of a being that is there to literally protect the environment, like is in the picture that I posted, with this tree. I mean, plain as day, you can literally see it. It almost, it's the way it looks. I'll have to send you this picture after the podcast, BD, because you got to blow it up and look at it because you're going to be amazed when you see the detail. It's more than just pareidolia. Okay. And when Native people talk and indigenous cultures around the world talk about certain aspects of the environment and Mother Earth having supernatural powers and beings attached to certain things, even the Druids had a belief about when you knock on the side of a tree, you're calling forth the elemental out of that tree to bequeath you something, to help
Oh
you out
yeah.
in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I've heard of that, and actually, recently I've mentioned it because I have friends that will sometimes knock on trees, and yeah, one of my videos from last year, I was like, "Oh, I hope you don't piss off the elementals in there." And a lot of times, people will do stuff in the field, and to each their own. uh,
Hmm.
and I wonder. I'm like, darn. I hope I'm not guilty by association. So, but in my head, I'll like be like, I have nothing to do with this
Yeah.
action, whatever it may be. So I kind of
See, the one
try to
thing that my
protect myself
father
that way.
always
But
instilled on me when I went out into the woods and stuff, my father always told me that don't knock on the trees because you're basically ringing a dinner bell. And when he said that to me, it kind of made sense. Um, you're communicating with something. First off, you have no idea how to communicate to it. You know, you don't know whether you're knocking, "Hey, I'm here, come eat me," or you don't know if you're knocking, "Hey, you're an a-hole and I don't have to respect you." I mean, you're trying to speak a language that only they know.
yeah,
Okay, so that's why I always tell everybody when you go out there, and I urge everybody to try this if they're going out bigfooting, boots on the ground. Take your socks and your shoes off and just stand in the environment you're going into and curl your toes up into the earth and just kind of think about the good things that you want to happen in your boots on the ground investigation, and then go about your business and maybe even offer tobacco or some type of a humble offering to the elements that are out there, because you're dealing with so many powers out there that you don't really have an idea. And I've said this 100 times too on the podcast that we as indigenous people have been warning outsiders for hundreds, if not thousands of years about the forces that are attached to the land here. And they never took us seriously. And now everybody and their uncles having encounters with dogmen, Bigfoot, reptilians, lizard beings, goat man, mothman, Jersey Devil. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Pugwudgies, you know, so many different things that they're encountering out there because
yeah.
they never took us seriously. They always thought we were the ones that were talking crazy language and we're making this stuff up. But what's funny is people are starting to wake up and realize that, hey, these indigenous people weren't that far off. There's some pretty freaky shit out here. So,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
kind of
And
explain what you had to go through.
what was that? Sorry, I got a motorcycle
Kind
going
of
by.
kind of explain if you could, what kind of stuff you've experienced when you went out in California,
Oh yeah.
and
Well,
what you encountered out there that's weird.
yeah. Well, even recently, I mean, you were just touching on you know on indigenous people and so yeah, the approach that you were just discussing. I think yeah, that's super important. Actually, this last time around, I've gotten a hold of a few drums, and I'm not by no means a drummer professionally, but I could keep a rhythm and a beat and stuff like that. So last year I did a little went on my own. This is up in Bluff Creek where the Patterson Gimlin film was taken, and I was able to do a little solo time by myself in the woods, drumming a bit and just like you said, you mentioned I didn't take my shoes off at that point, but when I reached the redwoods, I did. And you talk about yeah, getting grounded and I think that's super important.
Hmm.
And so this time around, we and I've met this brother before. He's from the Hoopa people, Hoopa up in Northern California, and I believe they are the biggest
Yep.
tribe in California, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a lot of
Hmm.
interesting things about them. But there's a brother from there, an elder, brother Ink. I call him Brother Inker, but he goes by Inker. And some of you may know him. He's been featured on what was it? Les Stroud's Survivor Man Bigfoot. There's the Willow Creek episode I've
Hmm.
talked about quite a bit. It's one of my favorites. And they go up into these areas where we go. And actually, some of these areas they might have gone to some sacred areas with Inker too. Some places where you can't go, but and there's areas like that up there that are sacred to the native peoples. There's different tribes in that area too. There's the Yurok, the Karuk, and they all have their 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 thing going on there and their areas. And so Inker had met before. So Inker has also been on Monster Quest, Doug, one of Doug Hychick's shows back in the day.
Mhm.
What else? There was a recent YouTuber who was up that way and did some documentaries on Humboldt County, and they stopped at the Hoopa in the Hoopa territory there, and of course they interviewed Inker. And there's other places I know he's been featured, documentaries and shows and stuff like that. So he's a go-to guy when it's you want to talk about Hoopa and the area there, and of course Bigfoot. But he also talked about other things. So this time around, a buddy of mine, Jonathan Easley, Western Bigfoot Explorations on YouTube, uh, rad brother, good channel, and he wanted to do something with the natives there this time, and he puts together documentaries, and he couldn't find anyone, and I was like, well, I think in my head I was like, I think I know where I could find Inker, and I think Inker would be the person to find. And so I put it out there, and you know how we connect, brother. And it happened, I was like, let's go to this particular campground where I know he used to work, and it had been years since I seen him. And I was like, let's give it a shot and see if we find him. And we found him. And and so we asked if we could do a little bit of recording with him and this and that, and he was open to it. And actually, he gave us extra, man. He gave us a tour, some of the areas, showed us certain like rocks, and he talked about the Klamath River there, and just a lot of interesting things. So stay tuned for Jonathan. I'm excited for what he's going to put out and what he got recorded. But anyway, the campground there is called Tishitang, and it's a native term of theirs. And they actually have it's a very nice campground. You have river access and everything, but now they have these new um, what is it, saunas, and it's really beautiful. It's two of them, and they're right next to each other. And the way you enter them, it's in a spiral form. And he was just breaking all this stuff down, the rocks that they use on it and everything. And anyway, basically, he was telling us, me and Jonathan, next time that we go bigfooting, that we should stop there, do a sweat, and he explained a few other things before we go on up, and then also a few
Mhm.
things when we get to the mountain, to the hill there, that we should do. And I thought that was super cool. and
Exactly.
and yeah, it's something that most
Exactly.
Bigfooters, yeah, something
Yep.
that most Bigfooters don't do. And there's some people out there that are on it like that, and especially the native folk, they know. But yeah, it was just awesome that he shared that with us, and I'll definitely be doing that next time. And I love doing saunas and hot springs and stuff like that anyway. So
Yeah. The
so
Lakota sweats that we do are the hottest sweat lodges around. Um, and,
wow.
and you can be stuck in there for hours upon hours upon hours. All it
See,
takes is one elder to keep a song going and a prayer going, and no matter how many doors where the flap opens up, which is typically four, um, but we literally, you're it's so hot in a Lakota sweat that your skin feels like it's on fire.
wow. Yeah, see, I've
Um,
I've never
so
experienced I've never
I always
experienced
tell
that.
everybody that before they do it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so
I've
I've never
always I've always
experienced
told
that.
people that before they go and try to do, yeah, yeah, that they need to work up to it. You know,
Yeah,
so because
yeah,
just as much good that can come from a sweat lodge or an inipi ceremony, you can have bad spirits too happen. And in fact, I've seen it happen. So you don't want to have any bad type of a supernatural type of an encounter during an inipi ceremony. So
wow, yeah, 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 yeah. And see, I've never experienced that, and I heard, that that's a whole other, definitely the whole other thing besides just going into a sauna and sweating, some toxins out. And you could do your own, spiritual stuff there, but that is definitely a whole other level. And I would, yeah, I think, like you said, you got to work your way to that. So I'm not going to say I would do it, but I would, if I ever got invited or however that works, I would be interested for sure.
right. Well, maybe I'll have to take a road trip because there's a couple other individuals that have been talking. They want me to conduct a sweat for them, and
Right on.
it it might be the last thing I do if I do a Lakota sweat. So but you know, it's a way that humanity, back in the day, we used to be able to connect, and we used to interact with the elementals a lot more. And it seems to me like the closer I get to the physical end of this body that I'm in, the more interaction I'm having with elementals and supernatural beings. And it's not a frightening thing if you look at it in the whole perspective of things, because you know my teachings from my elders and from my father and my uncles was that everything is literally connected in the web of life. It's like the old Chief Seattle saying, um, you know, we're all connected in the web of life. What we do to the web, we do to ourselves, you know, which is basically what we call the ripple effect. Now, when you're going out into an environment that you are only in part of the time of your life, you're not in it all the time, you're going to try and do certain things your way that you're used to, but you're in somebody else's house. Okay. You don't wipe your feet on somebody's carpet inside their house. You know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people can't understand, why they have bad encounters with Bigfoot or Dog Man or other, even elementals, little people, little people especially. There's several different types of little people, you know, from the Pugwudgie to the real small, 3-inch tall little people that look like shadows.
Mhm.
There was a buddy of mine that talked about him and his cousin were camping, and I believe they were up in the Rocky Mountains, somewhere around what is it, Silver City, Colorado, I believe is what it's called.
Okay.
But they were out there camping, and it got real quiet one night, and they were sleeping outside. They didn't have a tent. They had the fire going, and he was on one side of the fire, and his cousin was on the other, and his cousin was fast asleep, and he couldn't get to sleep right away. But then he noticed his buddy, his cousin, his whole sleeping bag was kind of up a little bit off the ground and was moving towards the wood line. And he said, Nighthawk, he said, I thought I was seeing things. He said, but I stood up, and he said, I shouted, and my cousin dropped down to the ground about 3 inches or so. And he says, I saw all these dark, shadowy little things running all over the place, going back into the wood line. And he asked me, he goes, what did I experience? I go, well, you experienced one of the forms of little people. You know, there are reasons that these beings are part of the environment. Okay. And their sole purpose is to keep that sacred hoop connected to the environment and to keep the environment protected at all costs. Okay. And whenever you're dealing with certain types of Bigfoot, Eric and I were talking about it, though, the one podcast several months ago, about how, the forest people can literally have their own medicine people. We have the Yurok, the Hoopa, and some of the Potlatch community in the Pacific Northwest. They all have their medicine people that go out in the middle of nowhere for years on end, and all they take is a knife and maybe something to survive a cold winter with, or rain, the rain season. And they come back years later looking like a savage person with matted hair and looking very wild. So if our own indigenous people and cultures can do that, what's to say that the forest people don't have their own medicine people that do that? You see what I mean? So that could be another reason why we're seeing orbs, associated with Bigfoot. Maybe that is their spiritual medicine that they're manifesting to keep near them or by them to where they can access it. Or maybe it is literally a way of opening up a portal to get out of this dimension and back to another dimension away from humanity. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen when you're dealing with that kind of an encounter with Bigfoot and orbs. Now, Bigfoot with the UFOs, I'm under the assumption, and this is just an assumption. Okay, I'm not saying that it's based on any fact or anything. It's just my opinion. That if humans can be abducted, why can't Bigfoot be abducted?
Well, yeah, and then there's supposed stories and tales of Bigfoot abducting people. So there's that. So if Bigfoot could abduct people, why can't Bigfoot be abducted himself? So I think it's
Exactly.
possible. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
and
I mean,
and I wanted, excuse me, I wanted to mention really quick, yeah, up in that area where we go there too, there's yeah, definitely there's these sacred walks in certain areas that people have been doing, the natives have been doing for a long time, and yeah, we definitely respect that. And it's amazing to think, like, even now with roads to get up in that area, it's quite of a task. And just to think that
mhm.
when there wasn't any roads, and they do these walks, and I think they still do it now with the road being there, and even with the road being there, it's not easy, and it's just an amazing thing.
Yep, exactly. The whole phenomena is amazing, and the more we get out and the more we experience these other phenomena attached to the cryptid encounters, we can't help but we have to think way outside the box on some of these things. And
Oh yeah.
it's like I said,
You've been doing it.
everything's connected.
Yeah, and earlier you had asked some of the weird stuff I'd seen out here in Cali, and for starters, I was mentioning the orbs popping up on the property, and actually then we were. It's funny, we were off grid, so we were running on solar and generators, but yet we had internet service, so I was able to live stream. So I guess some would say not off grid, but um, and so I was able to live stream a lot of these times that these orbs were popping up. And so if you go like 5, 6, 7 years back, uh, in some of my YouTube videos, you'll see some of those live streams. And basically, it's dark out. Maybe you'll see the silhouette of some of the ridges there, but for the most part, it's just a black screen, and you see these lights pop up. But it's all that area is all private. It was private property, and there was some interesting geological things where some of this stuff was happening, which could go back to the whole mineral and stuff. There was a huge rock there, and it was named after a Native American family that was known in the area there. And actually,
Hmm.
you remind me of those brothers. It was these two brothers that actually were still around from that family. But that particular rock, and one of these orbs would always pop up there. But then I've also seen these orbs like float through the woods and stuff like that, and move
Hmm.
around. I've seen them dart into the sky, vice versa, from the sky dart into the woods and stuff like that. And yeah, I was having other stuff happening on the property, like I was hearing the knocks. I would hear, every once in a while you'd hear knocks, and the tree breaks, snaps, and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and then trees being pushed over. Like it was happening so much. I got to see uh, trees fall over on their own several times, and it just happened so many times that I thought it was, it couldn't have been, maybe some of those were wind and maybe dead trees and stuff like that. And every once we would get snow in that area too, so there would sometimes be snow, but it wasn't like heavy snow. So there was that. But yeah, no, it was, I felt there was other stuff going on, and especially when I started seeing the lights, it was like confirmation of this other stuff I was thinking about. I was like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, there is some weird stuff going on because now we're getting these lights, and that's when I started first learning about the orbs and people talking about it in association with Sasquatches, and I was like, wow, so there is something to this, and that just
Yep.
drove me down deeper down the rabbit hole, man. And
Yep.
it's funny you mentioned the other day in one of the chats, you're like, hey, you want to go down a rabbit hole? I was like, I didn't know what you meant. I was like, wait, are you trying to shove me down a rabbit hole or something? What's going on here, Nighthawk? But it was the invite to this, so
Yeah,
thank you for that.
and it's
But
it's it's something too. It's something too, though, BD, that you know, you can't make light of people's recounts of encounters with orbs or UFOs associated with Bigfoot. In 1966, I believe, or 67, um, in Presque Isle Bay, Pennsylvania, Erie, PA, there was a Bigfoot sighting on what they call Presque Isle, and this is jets out. It's like a three-sided bodied island of water that jets out from the mainland into a peninsula type of a thing with a bay on one side and Lake Erie around the other two sides. Um, and in 66 or 67, there was four teenagers that were parking at one of the beaches, and they got their Mustang stuck in the sand. And these two guys decided to leave the young ladies with the car while they walked into town to get some help, get a tow truck. Um, Unfortunately, they didn't have cell phones back then, so walking was the only thing we could do back then. Um, but to make a long story short, they saw this lights in the sky come down, the two girls, and they described it as a UFO. Okay. And then the next thing they know, they're hearing this crashing coming through the wood line on the peninsula near the vehicle. And they said that outside their vehicle, they started screaming because there stood a 9-foot tall, hairy Bigfoot creature holding an orb in its arm. Now,
wow.
that was the first actual orb sighting that I've heard of in, in that part of the world. And they said that they screamed so loud that the thing tried to literally open up the door to the vehicle, but they wouldn't. They wouldn't leave the vehicle unlocked. They locked the doors. But it turned and walked away, and as soon as it got to a tree, it disappeared. Literally, it
Wow.
vanished. Okay. Now, was that an actual sighting of a Bigfoot with an orb, or was that an elemental or even interdimensional type of a being that came to the peninsula that night? Okay, in 1966 or 67. To this day, Project Blue Book investigated it. It was one of the main cases that they couldn't solve. And they even had the United States Air Force come in and remove the tree that the being walked into
Oh,
so they could cover it up. So, and
wow.
this is an actual documented case from Project Blue Book.
Okay.
So
Well,
I thought that
uh-huh.
was very interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm interested in what year exactly happened, because if it is 67, that's the same year as the Patterson Gimlin film. So that keep
Mhm.
that in mind, and even if it's a year before that, I mean, just anything around those years. But they were saying 67. I forget. There's some other big events that happened that were pretty big, but Patterson Gimlin being one of them for sure.
And don't forget about
And I uh-huh.
Kecksburg incident in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania in 1965. The acorn-shaped craft crashed to the earth
Okay.
that they thought was the Glock bell from the
The bell,
Nazis.
yeah,
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 the bell.
yep.
So, and that happened, just probably about about 2 hours away from this location.
Wow, trip out, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing is also in the Patterson Gimlin film. There's a M.K. Davis who did great work on the stabilization. There's some things I don't agree with everything he's put out, but I respect him fully. And he's pointed out that there's a flash of light in the Patterson Gimlin film when Patty's walking by. So I don't know if some
Mhm.
of you maybe know about
Yeah.
that. And he's pointed out a few other
Yeah.
things, but I thought that was real interesting. Um, yeah, what is that? And something happens when that flash of light. He points out a possible another subject in the background, which it could be. But there you go. These flashes of light, weird balls of light, and these creatures again. So, or these
Yeah.
beings, however you'd like to refer to them. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, man. I just, and I just find it fascinating how certain tribes consider them almost like a bigger brother, or even like the
Yep.
boss of
That's
the
what we call
mountain, and just yeah,
them.
highly respected, and maybe others fear it, but yeah, no, I think there's something to it, and it must be respected, and
Yep.
and for me, a lot of times Bigfoot, Sasquatch, when I think of that, yeah, there's the terrifying accounts, and it's a scary, it could be a scary monster seen as that, but I also, see it as a teacher. It's taught me a lot about the woods, the wilderness, nature, different edible foods, and just so much. It's amazing. So, I think it's for me, it's been a good thing.
Yeah.
You never know; it could turn bad at any moment. But yeah, for the most part,
As
it's
long
I
as you
don't know,
do it in
real.
a good way.
Uh-huh. What was that?
I said, as long as you do it in a good way, you won't have any bad encounters.
There you go.
I want to
Hey,
play a short video, guys. I want to
yeah,
play a
go for
short
it.
video. I want you to listen to this, BD, and
Okay.
I want your honest opinion, because this talks about a certain connection to angelics and the basically the giants. Okay. And just I played it once before on here, but I'm going to play it again. It's
Right
very
on.
interesting.
We've
Cool.
seen redonkulous things, right? So we go down to Chiapas, Mexico. We're rescuing kids down there. I mentioned that one that portaled through Zoom from Chiapas,
Yeah.
right? So there's all kinds of next level demonic witchcraft, next level witchcraft down there. So things that manifest, you go, whoa, what is that? I never even heard of like a hybrid spider type person, and that's why all these kids say, man, she looks like a spider. She has many arms. Well, of course, if you go into India, you got all kinds of gods and deities that have multiple arms. The largest Mayan pyramid on the planet Earth is in Chiapas. We are rescuing children in the shadow of that thing. You can literally
Wow.
see the pyramid from my ranch.
Wow. From your ranch?
Yeah, we have a redemption ranch there.
Wow.
And so, and again, we bought turf. We bought physical dirt. We brought in a ministry that's been there for 9 generations. We turned the whole thing over there so that we would have authority within that region. Okay. You don't just come in there swinging the American flag. You come in there in the authority of the kingdom, and you need to know how to operate in authority. So with all that said, we did all this. And at our hotel, there's this big giant rock that has a giant footprint in it. And it's monstrous. I went down there with Brian Schwartz. He's an NFL football player. He wears a size 17 shoe. Okay. This thing was twice the size of his shoe. I hear that you guys got giants down here. And they're like, yeah, we do. I'm like, okay, well, would they come up out of the ground? Or they're like, yeah, they live in the ground. And they're like, but that's not as scary as the ones that come out of the sky. And I'm like, the ones that come out of the sky? And they said, yes. And they come down and they look like stars and constellations, and they manifest into what look like people. And they threaten us if we don't give them things.
Wow.
So it's like, I know that there's a species of angels that's called the host of heaven. The host of heaven is the constellations. So you can see that whenever Jesus was born, that the shepherds are out in the field, the angels came down as the host of heaven. Well, they were used to seeing those constellations every single night, and they were used to seeing Virgo, the virgin, a clump of stars that is a virgin that has a seed in her, which is impossible. And then from there, Libra, he's going to be a redeemer. From there, Scorpio, he's going to take on death. From there, Sagittarius, he's going to raise from the dead. And it ends at the line of the tribe of Judah, Leo, which is the ecliptic. And so I'm into all that, right? They knew the story in the heavens. The angels that showed up were as those constellations. They're also known as the stars of God. They're also known as the stars. I can guarantee you some of those have fallen. Some of those have rebelled and they show up down there. The stars come down, they manifest, and all kinds of craziness happens.
What do you think about that?
Oh yeah, pretty intense, man. And another thing I was going to bring up, we were talking about different terms for Bigfoot that natives have, and there's another one for the Star Brothers, star beings and stuff like that, right? There's
Hmm.
mentioned the Star
Yep.
Brothers, so it makes me wonder. All right, some of these different are these stars also different things. Let me tell you also, a lot of times these orbs, I thought they were stars. That's what they looked like, stars, and they would
Exactly.
change
That was my
change multiple
that.
colors, and I've seen the different colors. I've seen the orange ones, and yeah, I could go on and on about it, but yeah, no, that was intense. I'd like to check out that interview.
Yeah, that was the confessional podcast, by the
Okay.
way, and very, very informative podcast. Um, but they actually link a lot of the supernatural with this type of activity too. And I'm not saying everything is supernatural. Don't get me wrong, because we do have our flesh and blood out there too. But my thoughts after reviewing that and experience what I've been experiencing and hearing all these other accounts, why couldn't it be something? Those orbs that we see up in the sky, maybe they're not portals. Maybe they are angelic entities, divine entities, entities from another dimension that are manifesting in this world. And when they come down, they take the form of something that they've been acquainted with for so long, like a Bigfoot or a dogman, or just say a human being that's 20 feet tall, a giant. So, I mean, it would make sense to me that these beings that are coming down in that orb-like form and changing form into something that the humanity is familiarized with and kind of fears, and they like he said that they ask of the indigenous people, favors from them, and if they don't get the favors, they get very angry. So, red eyes.
Yep. Yeah, no, and also it's interesting. So he was mentioning that was in Mexico, Chiapas, and if you go further down south to Peru, I've actually seen some videos, and some pretty good channels have featured some of these video clips in their videos. But it's of these really tall guys, and they're actually dressed for the most part. It looks like in white, and they might have like some sort of like a belt or something, and
Mhm.
they just look really tall, and they're like running on the ridges, and running down the mountains. Have you seen that footage? Yeah, it's
Yes, I
out of
did. Yeah.
out of Peru. I thought that was pretty trippy there. I mean, if you want to talk about giants, the way those guys were running up and down those mountains was amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and then also I did want to touch. I mean,
I
there's so
just,
I wanted to touch on a
yeah, go
little
ahead.
people experience that we had since we're still in Latin America. I
Mhm.
haven't, up north in Northern California, like recently, the one of the people that was being interviewed in the Hoopa region there was mentioning, they talked about the Patterson Gimlin spot, they talked about Bigfoot, of course, and then
Mhm.
he brought up little people, which I thought was pretty cool because up there most people just focus on Bigfoot, but so we know, through them that the little people are there as well. But I had an experience. I was in Venezuela a few years back. I was with my queen, and we went to go visit family, and I have a cousin out there who, this guy, he's, for the most part, he's in the mountain, and every once in a while he'll come down to the city and get whatever supplies, check in with family and stuff. He used to have a pet monkey, a little pet monkey that he carried with him. He was
Huh.
almost like a Tarzan. He was like the Tarzan of our family. A pretty long dreadlocks, not as long as mine, but and everyone's like, "Oh, you got to meet this cousin. He's just like you and everything." And yeah, he's into he's kind of like the shaman of our family. He's into like the different herbs and plants, and he deals with all that stuff.
Mhm.
And anyway, but yeah, he's pretty young for the most part, and had his girlfriend at the time. So we went to go visit. Of course, we had to hang out with him, and he's like, "Yeah, let's come up the mountain." And it's called it's above the big city of Caracas. There, it's called Mount Avila. And anyway, so one of the things he told me, we were talking, mentioned about Bigfoot and stuff like that, and he was definitely on board with it, but didn't mention anything in the area there. But he did mention about little people being up there. So we did an overnight camp up there,
Mhm.
and it was quite a hike up, let me tell you. And so we got there at night. We set up camp, did our thing, hung out for a bit, and went to bed. Eventually went to bed. But before that, he mentioned about the little people. He's like, at one point during the night, you're gonna hear, first of all, these wild dogs, these packs of wild small dogs that walk around here. But then you're gonna hear these footsteps that sound like people. He said that's gonna be the little people. And we were like, okay, cool. Yeah, I was all on board, and my queen, she was just like, oh, yeah, like, I don't know what she was thinking, but at one point at night, we did
I know
wake
what
up.
she was thinking.
And at one point, and it was her that woke me, like I think woke me up, and she was telling me, "Do you hear that?" And she was like, "Whoa, we heard, yeah, what sounded like footsteps out there of people going
Mhm.
by, and it was quite an experience to have that happen." And so I fully believe him. Uh, yeah.
Yep. There's a lot more weirdness out there than just Bigfoot. That's for darn sure, everybody.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but
I'm zeroed in on the Sasquatch, but no, I know there's a whole lot more going
yep.
on, and yeah, no, I've had going back to the property where I had the orbs popping up and everything, and would do the live streams. That's where I had my first actual what I consider a Bigfoot sighting, and it wasn't a massive, hulking Bigfoot or anything like that. It was just I was driving. It was daytime. There were certain levels to the property, and we had this level that was almost like I would call it the third tier, and you'd have to drive up this steep hill to get up there. But I was on my way up there, and it was during summer, and it's private property. There's a gate you have to get in with code and everything, so people should not be around there other than our neighbors. And like I said, everyone's pretty much spread apart. You don't really see anyone up that way. And so I'm driving up there maybe 5 miles an hour. So I'm in my truck, windows down, hot as heck. And I noticed this thing flanking me. And both sides, it's heavily wooded up there. There's a lot of woods. You have different types of woods, oaks, madrone, your firs, and so anyway, I noticed this thing like flanking the truck, and it's maybe I would say maybe 30, 35, 40 yards at the most. And it's moving pretty quick, and I could see from my peripheral vision, and I always describe it as one of those kids flip books, because that's what it looked like. It was going between the trees, and it was kind of like just flickering through, and I could just make out the silhouette of it. Just looked like a person, but it was all black, and it wasn't huge. It must have been like a regular sized person, maybe 5'5", 5'6", 5'7", around there. It wasn't huge. And so I stopped my truck, and then at the base, a little further up, at the base of a oak tree, it was pretty big oak trees, probably old growth. I noticed a black face just sticking out the side. I couldn't see the rest of the body or anything. It was just like a black cutout, and no hair hanging or anything like that. And I can't see any, like, I can't make any lips, but around the eyes, what I thought was the eyes. And yeah, it was all grayish, and we're having like this stare down. And I'm not saying anything. My phone's on the passenger side seat, and I don't grab it, and I'm just kind of stuck there. And then before I know it, I'm headed back up to the area I was headed to, and I don't remember it taking off. I don't know how it broke up, how, like, what happened there, but it was just like bam, and next thing I know, I'm kind of driving up. I'm telling you, I can't remember what happened there, and I thought it was very weird. Again, I couldn't tell if it was a male or female, but I would imagine maybe male. I don't know. I didn't see any boobs or anything like that. But
Right.
yeah, no, it was just very odd, and that happened there where all this other stuff was happening. And that was the first time I had seen something. That's southern Humboldt County, California, and in an area where people they know, some may know it as Murder Mountain. There's a Netflix
Mhm.
documentary about
Yep.
that. There's a few other documentaries actually about that area, because it kind of borders Mendocino County there. But no, it's well known for Bigfoot activity up that way. There's been some recent reports. I actually went in July and stopped where one of these reports were submitted just to check there. I already knew the area, but I was like, yeah, let's stop, do a little video, check it out. And that was submitted to the Bigfoot Mapping Project. So anyone interested could check out and submit reports there, check out reports from around the way. And of course, BFRO is another one. They're still doing it out there. But yeah, no, I thought it was fascinating, and yeah, it was one of the times that I seen something, and of course, it was Road Cross citing that report, and I was actually on the road, on the dirt road, so it was like not far from the road for me. And there was a second time, a few years later, where it happened again, where I seen this tall black, and it was skinny. It wasn't hulky or anything, it was super skinny, kind of like I am. And it was tall though, very tall, like unusually tall. And it was just a black, dark jet black and color. And it walked from the opposite side of the freeway. This is up in a town called Trinidad, northern Humboldt County, and
Mhm. Yeah, I know where
inland.
Trinidad is.
Yeah, it's on the coast, inland from like Hoopa, Willow Creek, and all that.
Mhm.
And it's a small fishing town. I was living in that area. I've lived throughout Humboldt County quite a bit. That's why I think I've been able to experience what I've experienced. But anyway, so I was headed south, leaving Trinidad, get on the 101 freeway, headed southbound. It had just rained, so I remember the floor being a little wet, and then the sun was setting too. So that was pretty cool. And so there's a particular vibe that gives, and especially up that way. And so I noticed traffic driving ahead of me. There's like three or four other cars already kind of going ahead of me when I got on the on ramp. And on the opposite side of 101, I see this tall figure walk across. And right where these cars are about to go by, I'm like, there's going to be an accident or something's going to happen here, some honking or some swerving and tire screeching and all that, right? And none of that happens. And then and so I figure wherever, if this thing walked by, it's going to be on the side of the road right where I'm going to cross here now. And so I'm checking to see where I'm expecting to see this thing, and there's nothing there, just a steep ravine, pretty steep ravine down, redwoods there, redwood trees. And if you keep going further down, it takes you down to the beaches of Trinidad. And
Mhm.
yeah, later on, I ended up seeing a report submitted by some ladies from 2013, just right up the way there. There's a side road that kind of it's kind of like not a detour. I wouldn't say a detour, but it's a little side road to 101 right in that Trinidad area. And same thing. They had this tall black Bigfoot walk across the road in front of them right there, and I was just like, wow. For me, it was confirmation, like kind of confirmation for me, man. And I was like, dude, what are the chances? But yeah, there's been other reports out of that area of Trinidad there, and yeah, just
Exactly.
some
Well,
of the stuff.
we're gonna
There's more
save.
stuff. We'll talk about more stuff,
Yeah,
man.
we're gonna save some of this conversation for a part two
Definitely.
of this. And maybe we can do it with me, you, and Eric, or me, you, and David, even and Melissa.
Anytime, brother. Yeah,
Um,
anytime.
yeah.
Just as long as I get the heads up, and if I get more of a heads up, then I could maybe share some videos and pictures and stuff, because I got plenty of that. Most of that's on my channel. You just kind of got to dig for it, and I'm making efforts to try and really present stuff in a package. So I'll be going through my old stuff eventually, maybe remixing that stuff somehow and bringing it back out, because it's good stuff. It's happened years back, but it's current, because a lot of this stuff, people are talking about this stuff a lot more. And yeah, we got to
Mhm.
get the word out for sure, and share with others what we got going on. And I thank you again, Nighthawk, brother, and everyone out there for supporting brother Nighthawk. I shared this out as well, man. So hopefully we got some new people up in here. And
Yeah, I
yeah,
saw
like I said,
Reese in the chat.
anytime.
So, Curtis. Yeah. Yep. I saw some of the guys in the chat. You know, I really appreciate everybody. Like I said though, I can't read the fine print on this computer because the screen's so small. It's just barely above the size of a smartphone. So,
Okay.
um, but you know, I'll go through the comments later on, and you know, and I'll reply to some of them. So don't think that I'm ignoring anybody tonight, because I will reply.
Yeah.
Especially if you leave a chat, you know, a chat message for me. Um, just, you know, when it comes to dealing with Bigfoot and orbs and UFOs, you have to keep an open mind, because there's so many different types of entities out there that could assume to be representing themselves as something they're not. And when you're dealing with elementals, you're dealing with an old world, magic with a K, that has been here since the beginning. Their energies are that to protect the environment that we walk upon and that we take advantage of every day. The air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the trees that provide us shade, and lumber for our homes. You know, we need to start getting back to the basics of maybe being a little bit more respectful and walk with reverence and respect for everything, both great and small. And maybe, just maybe, if we did that, these encounters would be less aggressive that people are having and fearful, and more accepting. And that's why, you know, I tell everybody, question everything every day. You have that right, okay? But don't look at things with blinders on, because you have to literally take the whole effect of everything. You got to not only take, when you're out there doing a boots on the ground investigation, you don't only take the environment into factor, you take the weather into factor, you take the um the attitudes of people that had the sighting into account. Um, did they exaggerate the accounts and encounters that they have? You know, are they making certain aspects of the encounter up? You know, you when you're going through a traumatic event, like a cryptid encounter or a supernatural encounter, sometimes our adrenaline gets the best of us. You know, your heart starts to beat fast, and you get that cold sweat, and you know, you feel almost like you're overwhelmed, and you start to envision things that aren't really there. And you know, that could be said about the pictures that I put up, you know, like the one with the elemental in the tree looking like Bigfoot. Which, by the way, BD, I'm going to send that to you. I want you to actually look at that, because it's an amazing shot. And David, I'm going to send it to you too. But there's so much more out there that we don't know. And even my being native indigenous, you know, and being brought up in the culture and all the legends and stuff, and you know, even with my own knowledge, I'm still limited on some of the aspects of these beings. Okay, because I've interacted with several of them, supernatural and flesh and blood, but you know, it was just a normal part of my life. I didn't really consider it something extraordinary. Okay. So if you have a sighting, just remember to keep your wits about you, or an encounter, and document everything. You know, document, you know, the condition of the soil, the condition of the weather, the condition of the temperatures, and all that. Did it rain the day before? Did it rain the day after? A lot of the attributes that the encounters get attributed to, like missing persons, inclement weather, water will be a big factor in it. And, you know, nobody's ever really looked at that when it comes to cryptid encounters, you know, which is amazing to me. They really should look into the weather before and after an encounter, and see if there's any correlation throughout historical data, that they can connect weather phenomena like rain, or even heavy snowfall, to the encounter. you know, because sometimes when you're dealing with something supernatural, it's going to pull those elements in. You know, they're going to utilize those elements to cover up their tracks. So
Yeah, even for our area, so like Humboldt County, if you look at BFRO, they Humboldt County has the most reports out of any other county in California. And then when you look at the the reports, most of them seem to be around the Native American reservations there, which is fascinating. But also another thing is that those areas seem to get a lot of water compared to like a lot more rain compared to
right.
like the southern part of the county, and of course the coast gets rain. But yeah, that coastal area and then going inland from there seems to get up north, seems to get a lot more rain. So it's something that has been pointed out from our particular region there. And
Yeah.
what else? Yeah, you know, I mentioned it last time. You must cringe, brother, and a lot of the native family out there, especially at the stuff that's going on with like Bigfoot, for example, on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff that I'm sure you're like, oh God. and I feel bad, man. And yeah, we got to be able to filter that out.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of it, but no, there's some really good stuff going around right now. And I think, you know, this is it's a good opportunity. You know, we have a
Mhm.
native brother here and who could give us insight and from his experience and point of view. I think
Yeah.
it's awesome, man. So thank you again, brother Nighthawk.
Well, we'll definitely do this again, brother. We will. We'll definitely do this again, and we'll have some other people on to get their opinion too.
Yeah,
So
yeah. There's so much more.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you, brother. You have a good
Well,
night.
yeah,
Okay.
blessings, man. Yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and close this out. And
wrap it
everybody, I
up.
want to thank everybody. But follow Bigfoot Dwarf if you can, please. Go to his YouTube channel and subscribe, okay, and share it out. The more people that work with him and work with me and everybody else that we interact with, like David and Melissa and Eric and DA and Cryptid Huntress, Jessica. She's a fun phenom too when it comes to this. Cryptidville is another good one. You know, get out there and watch some of their podcasts and stuff and show the support and the love, because you know we're doing this, and you know we really don't do it for any acceptance. We do it because we question it. You know, we seek the knowledge to find out, to solve these mysteries, basically is what it is. And like I always tell you guys, question everything. You know, you have to. Okay.
Yeah, we
For
didn't
me,
even get into
Nighthawk.
the
Yes,
old world topic yet, but yeah, no, there's so much more we got to get into for sure, man. Because
yep,
I'm already, I was ready to do a couple hours with you.
man. It's been a
But
long day, brother.
oh no,
I don't know if you realize, but Saturday morning, Eric and Corey had to fill in for me because
oh
I had
wow,
something happen here.
uh-oh,
Literally a drive-by shooting, pretty much.
oh okay, yeah,
Yeah,
the block is hot. That's all you got to say.
yeah,
No, we have stuff happen like that here all the time, bro. And you know, and sometimes a lot of times I wouldn't share stuff like, but I started sharing because I don't know, I need to let that out. I need to talk to someone about it. But
yeah,
I totally feel you. I'm glad you're safe. Um, yeah, no, let's do this again.
definitely, definitely, brother. Well, you take care of yourself, everybody. Thank you to the moderators in the chat, everybody in the chat. You're phenomenal. Bounty, Shelly, Roxanne, Urso, Scott. Let's see who else we got in there still. We got Unreal Estate, Dead Wolf. Let's see, Joanne, Michelle, Roger Blair.
Yeah,
Everybody's in the chat. So know yourself. Good to see you. Dawn, very good to see you. Let's see.
and you know what? Really quick,
Barbie.
ECBRO. Like I've I don't know if he's tagged me on Facebook. Like I'm not on Facebook, but it's weird. Sometimes I'll get messages and it's like it says maybe if someone tagged you or something like that, and I feel bad because I don't deal with Facebook. But we'll see. Hopefully, one day you said we might be able to hang out with him, and I'll bring that up. And yeah, no disrespect. I'm not trying to avoid
Definitely,
anyone.
definitely.
And much respect to that brother. He's doing his thing, and yeah, I'm aware of who he is.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He goes out with his grandson a lot too, and you know,
Yep.
to do the campouts on the weekend, which is really cute too.
Yeah, I watch him.
But yeah, I worry about anybody, and this is another thing before I go. I worry about anybody that goes out there by themselves. So a lot of people go missing by themselves. Okay, so you know, take that into consideration. Don't be a Billy Badass and think that you're going to go out by yourself and conquer the wilderness, because the wilderness always wins. Okay, because it's not the Bigfoot you got to watch out for, or the dog man you got to watch out for. It could be the mountain lion, it could be the brown bear, it could be the black bear, it could be,
Grizzly.
you know, the moose, the elk, the grizzly, you know, it could be anything, you know, the wolves, you know, the coyote pack. So many different things could harm you out there and unalive you. So just be careful. Don't go out by yourself. Okay, plain and simple.
Sometimes you don't have a choice, but
yeah, you may be big and bad.
And I say that because you know, sometimes when I was living up there, a lot of times I was on my own, and you know, it wasn't by choice. But yeah, no, be careful if you go. I know a lot of guys like to do the solo stuff, and yeah, no, definitely be safe out there. And
Chadwick Gates, I don't know if he's in the chat or not, but if he's listening, he's one of the guys I worry about a lot.
All right,
because he's
there's
always
another
out there by himself. And,
yeah, there's another good guy, Mike Wanders on YouTube. He does a lot of solo stuff in the hot spots. And, yeah, but no, enough respect to everybody, and just be safe for sure.
Yep, definitely. Thank you, Bigfoot Jorf. I appreciate you being here, brother. And we're gonna definitely get together again and make it a bigger and better one. Okay.
Boom.
All right. Take care, man.
Later.
All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody again for being here. You guys are fantastic. Keep up the good work, mods. You guys are doing great. I appreciate y'all. And we'll see you next time. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Through the mist we rise, a force unbroken, with banners high and hearts awoken. The sound of pipes, our war is calling. Like thunderous waves, our duty is falling. Stand tall, together we fight, with courage found in every breath. We'll fight like lions, defy our death. In unity our hearts shall sing, the legacy of warriors through every reign. With battle cries we forge our fate, in fields of valor we elevate. As shadows loom, our spirits gleam. Brothers in arms, we are the dream. Fearless, we take the night, with courage found in every breath. We'll fight like lions, defy our death. In unity our hearts shall sing, the legacy of warriors through every reign. As dawn breaks we know our name,